Welcome to the Mindset Connection podcast, where we showcase everyday change makers doing extraordinary things in the field of mental health and wellness. We are your hosts, Jennifer Clearwaters and Cynthia O'Connell, and we are here for our 20th episode. And we are here with the amazing and magical Jenna Rose. So we're not going to waste any time because we need every second to talk all about her. So welcome, Jenna, to our podcast. And Cindy is going to give you some background on this amazing woman.
So I'm only going to give you the short version because she's done so many things and is able to do so many things. So Jenna Rose is an evidential medium, a priestess, a psychospiritual teacher, a sound bath facilitator, and an energy practitioner. With a background as a trauma therapist, she's also a licensed professional counselor, went through Monmouth University, little shout out there, and a lifelong calling to support others. She has found her soul's purpose in guiding individuals on their spiritual journeys. She creates a compassionate, empowering space for those seeking clarity, healing, and connection. As a bridge between the physical and spiritual realms, she offers a grounded, authentic presence for those on a journey of self-discovery and spiritual awakening. Jenna also volunteered at our Day of Wellness, and she was one of the people that was instrumental in us creating that day for healing for grieving families in Brielle, giving free mediumship readings, which was incredible. We thank you for that gift of your time and energy. And her office is in Brielle, New Jersey. It is home to both of her businesses, The Enchanted Healing Realm, and her counseling practice, Lead with Your Heart. She specializes in working with women's trauma, offering EMDR. She'll explain to you what that is. A mind-body approach that helps processing and healing trauma, along with spiritual counseling to support the journey from recovery to deep healing and transformation. She is truly a magical person, and yeah, I'm glad you said that, Jen.
Yep.
And here we go.
And here we go.
All right.
We knew right away that when Cindy and I first met you, we were like, oh, she needs to come on the podcast for sure. So let's start. Like I said, one of the things that I love about you is that you are a counselor and a therapist and licensed professional counselor. And then you have this side business, or not even a side, it's a huge piece of what you do with mediumship. So maybe let's start there, because maybe you can explain to listeners and people who are watching, like, what does a medium do? How did you get called to this? How did you train for this? Like, it's not like you woke up one day and you were like, oh, I'm going to be a medium. So how did you get into this path of your journey?
So as I was a counselor, I had a privilege because I was trained to talk to people and hold space for very heavy, deep emotions. And luckily, as a counselor, most of my friends are counselors as well, and met into the spiritual realm. So it was actually a terrifying experience that happened to me when it was back in 2020, May 2020. I was walking to the beach to see the full moon rise. And it was when everything was still closed down from the pandemic, like the beaches, the parks, everything. And I'm walking and I see a man sitting on the curb with his head in his hands like he was in pain. And I turn around because I'm like, I'm alone here. Is anyone else here? He's in pain. I turn around. No one's around. I turn back and he's gone. And I was terrified. So I contacted two close friends who are both in the mental health field and very spiritual. And I'm like, it's either a psychotic break or a spiritual awakening. I'm terrified. Please stay tuned. I might need help. And they both responded very well. I go to the beach. I do my thing. I watch the moon rise. I'm walking back and I get a phone call that a family member died at the scene of an accident from a head injury. It took me about maybe 20-ish minutes, I want to say. I can't really remember. And then it clicked. I'm like, that was him. It was a bald white man, and this family member was a bald white man. And thank goodness I am a millennial, because I turned to social media. I don't know what I would have done for all the people who have come before me who have dealt with this and did not have social media at their fingertips. I joined Facebook groups, and all these incredible, very compassionate mediums were so supportive, and they were able to tune in and do the reading for me and validate what I saw. So that happened. That terrified me. And then as a counselor, so fast forwarding a little bit, as a counselor, I started to attract traumatic loss
Mhm.
clients. And I don't specialize in grief. That was never a specialty that I had. I specialize in trauma, but I had all these grief clients. And what started to happen is spirit would come into my sessions and mess with my body. So I'd have hot flashes, get dizzy. Like, it was really interfering with my work. So when I say I didn't choose this, I really mean I did not choose this, like at all. This chose me. I eventually found my first mentor. I started working with her. I did 3 hours every 2 weeks. It consisted of energy work, shadow work, because I mean, there's a whole bunch of reasons for that, but energy work, shadow work, and specific mediumship development. And so I did that. I mean, I still see her now. I see her like once a month or so. We call it graduate school, but I called it witch school. So when I first met her, and I was like, can we just do witch school? And so here we are now. I still see her many years later, just not as much. And it's more like supervision at this point.
Even when you read about other mediums in their stories, they're presented with something similar and they run and they're like, absolutely not. I don't want to do this. Like, I just want people to leave me alone. Like, you ran to it.
Oh, no, I tried running away.
You tried running away. But then when it's affecting your
tried
body,
to
but then
run
how
away.
did you just say, like, I'm going to embrace this enough that I can understand it for myself, and now I'm going to offer it for other people?
So I was always drawn to mediumship when I was younger. I grew up watching Long Island Medium, loved Teresa Caputo. I was always drawn to it. And I always had signs from spirit, but I thought that most of us did, right? So different things would happen, you know, whatever. I had mediums tell me when I went for readings that I was also a medium, and I didn't believe them. But this started to just, like, it really took hold of my life, honestly. Like, I wouldn't be able to go anywhere without having physical symptoms. Like, it was really intense. Going to a grocery store was nightmare. And especially with work, like, I would have to leave work sometimes, and I would text my mentor asking for all the things, and she would tell me all the things. I would do them, and they only worked a fraction of the way. I eventually started to embrace this because running away clearly wasn't working. And I joined a mediumship circle with a couple other practicing mediums where we just meet every so often. We practice on each other. And it was leaving circle one night. I threw my hands up, literally in the parking lot. I threw my hands up. I was like, I surrender. I give up. I will do this. I don't think I'm good enough. I think I am going to be the worst medium ever. It was such imposter syndrome. And I said, but I don't think I have a choice here, so I have to do it. And as soon as I did that, the very next day, Spirit started to respect my boundaries in my counseling sessions. So what I believe this to be was that my spirit guides, they knew that I basically needed to be harassed by spirit in order to step into this, because, you know, I knew I could do it, but I still was like, I can't do this intentionally. I can't sit with someone and get a reading. Like, this just happens to me. I can't control it.
Yeah, and it's one thing to have it happen to you, but then I hear what you're saying with saying, like, how am I going to read someone else who's coming to me and is hoping to connect with someone or get a message? And what if you
and what happens if there's nothing?
If there's nothing, yes, yeah. Cindy and I, you know, after we had seen you, when you came to the grieving day at Brielle, you were busy, we were busy, and we didn't even get a chance to talk to you. So then afterwards, we had said to you, like, we need to come in and do a session. And I have to say, like, it was incredible. It really, and
Absolutely.
you know, we came in with really no information for you, because, you know, sometimes you know, whenever you talk to people about mediums, there's always that skepticism about, like, oh, well, they're going to look you up or they're going to know all things about you. We didn't talk about anything, and you picked out the craziest details of things in both of our lives that that nobody would have known. And it was just like a natural thing, like, oh,
absolutely,
you know, did your son play with frogs? Like, you know, or, you know, little things that we were like, how would you know that? You know, and
my mother's on the piano. There's a picture of her on the right.
Yeah. It was really, we were fascinated by it.
Yeah, for sure.
And even we were laughing because we were telling Cindy, we just finished our work on our audiobook for our book. And, you know, the studio people know this too. Several times during Cindy's recordings where she was in the booth trying to read, the producers and the editors were like, oh, wait, we need to stop. And she was reading and they would go, we hear voices, like, who's talking? And there was nobody talking. And we were laughing because we were like, oh, when Jenna comes, maybe she can see who was actually speaking in here when Cindy was in the recording booth, because it happened several different days. And always when she was speaking, there was somebody that they could pick up in their headphones. It was very interesting.
She's thinking. I can see her mind rolling there.
Did it seem like a feminine voice?
She didn't hear it.
You didn't hear it.
No.
Okay.
We'll have to ask them.
I didn't hear
it.
Yeah.
Have to ask.
Yeah. So maybe you can just give us a little bit of what was your impression of our session? Like, you must have some feelings afterwards.
Yeah, when you leave, when people.
So when we left, and I think we were there for an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Yeah. Are you are you energetically drained after you do a session like that?
It honestly depends. A lot of times I'm feeling very uplifted, but when I met with the two of you, I was actually going through another layer of a spiritual awakening that was messing with my body. And so, I mean, you two saw, like, I had to take my sweater off. I was sweating.
You were hot.
I had to go outside for a moment. But then all of that resolved. And I just remember feeling pretty calm. And especially, so we started with the mediumship reading. And then I explained to the two of you that I'm starting to get into reading past life readings. And so seeing the past lives between the two of you was very fascinating. And it just felt like everything connected. It all clicked.
It did.
Yeah. I mean, we felt the same way. We walked out, we were like,
yep. Like,
wow.
it felt like everything went, yep.
Yeah, there was
right.
no... Yeah. I mean, I didn't even know, I was definitely emotional sitting there when my mother and my dear friend Rick and, like, they were there. Absolutely. But then when I walked out, it was like, oh,
okay.
Yeah, it was okay.
Yep.
It was good, actually.
Yeah. One of the things that I really loved, and I pointed this out to Cindy, was that your office space is so beautiful. And I was sitting close to the window where you have the bird feeder. And I remember I had looked back and there were no birds there. And then you were talking about Cindy's mom and, like, looking for birds. It's her, whatever. And when we looked back, there were like 6 birds out there.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was just, it was a great experience. And we're going to continue that.
Yeah.
So can you explain what you do as a psycho-spiritual teacher? Yes.
So psycho-spiritual teacher, that is just a name that I ended up giving myself to explain all the layers of all the things that I do.
Okay.
Because I have some people coming to me under my business in the Enchanted Healing realm that just want to do shadow work. So it's kind of like coaching. I'm not using
what is shadow work?
Yes.
For people who don't know.
So for shadow work,
it sounds scary. Right? Shadow,
right?
Shadowy
totally
and dark.
I didn't get
right?
that impression.
But I can hear people thinking shadow. Like, what does that mean?
So in simple terms, in our inner world, we all have things that maybe we cast into the shadow that we don't like about ourselves. And with shadow work, it's, this comes from Carl Jung. And it's all about archetypes. And so despite this actually coming from my field that I'm licensed in, I actually never had formal training in this. I had this through I call her my witch teacher. I had this through her where we learned about different archetypes. So there's this belief that we all have certain archetypes that we come into this lifetime with. And we all have the same 4. But then we all have our own unique ones. And each archetype has light and shadow. And some of them might not sound great. Like every one of us, no one's exempt. We all have a victim. That doesn't sound so great. And the victim is neither good nor bad. It just is. We have the light and the shadow. So how do we work with it to help get our needs met? And so I have people coming to me for just this type of shadow work, right? I also have people coming to me under psycho-spiritual teaching for mediumship development. They're like my younger self, where I'm like, what is happening? Please help make this stop, or I want to do this. So I have people coming to me for a couple of different reasons, but every single session with everyone is so different. So I do a 30-minute consultation call that's complimentary just on Zoom, just to get a feel for the person, see what they're looking for. Can I help them? If not, I know other people that can.
That's always good too.
Yeah, that is great.
Right, because I can't work with everyone. None of us can, right?
Right.
So I will, do a consultation with them, see what their goals are. Some are just seeking shadow work and they like that I have a background in counseling, but they prefer to do it this way for, whatever reason that that person might have. Makes and sense. Then others are looking for shadow work and development. Some are just looking for development. So yeah.
That's a great explanation too. It really made it very clear. So what about, somebody says, people say this all the time, I'm psychic or you're psychic, and you explained this to us in our session, and I thought you did it so beautifully, and I think a lot of people would be very interested in your answer.
I hope I can remember what I said. But my typical explanation is that all mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are mediums. Now, I personally steer away from the word psychic just because there's a negative connotation with like the flashing neon light and scams and whatnot. Unfortunately, there's just a negative connotation. So I steer away from that term myself. But I do believe in terms of mediumship that all of us can connect with spirit. I will be one of the first people to tell you that you don't need to have a professional medium to connect with spirit. And I teach people how to do this. I teach people in my mediumship sessions. I even had a session with 2 parents connecting with their daughter. And at the end of the session, their daughter in spirit said, tell them to stop going to mediums. And they burst out laughing because I was their 3rd medium. And they said, they're like, oh, she knows us so well.
Yeah, she doesn't need to go back.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So one of the things you said is that some people aren't open.
So there are certain people that come into this world with I call it a sacred contract. And a sacred contract to be a naysayer, if you will, and to doubt this. And perhaps that type of person is going to help someone like me really embrace this, because I'm like, no, I'm going to really show you that this is real. Like, let me help. And so they can help me stand more firmly in my power. And so that person, they might not be able to receive, right? And it doesn't mean that I'm more spiritually evolved than they are.
They're just not ready. They're not open.
Right, but they could be more spiritually evolved than I am. Like, there's no competition here. It's nothing like that. They could have made this contract with me soul side so that they help me stand more firmly in my power.
I love that.
Great.
One of the things that I really love, well, there's lots of things, but one of the things that me, from being a counselor, we have the same licensure, is that you have very clear boundaries between what you do with your therapy patients and what you do with your medium clients, and you don't crisscross. So how did you establish those boundaries, and what are they?
So that was honestly very challenging at first, especially when spirit kept on coming into my counseling sessions. And I have to do a lot of internal, I call them internal, but it's really more energetic boundaries with myself and spirit. And I was doing that, don't get me wrong. It's just I had to surrender into this before my spirit guides and let the boundaries really work. So with my counseling clients, like it's counseling, right? I will talk to them. This is what I've been trained in. I have a master's in this. I've had years of supervision. If they do believe in an afterlife, we will discuss what their beliefs are. If they want to connect with the medium, I will give them referrals to people that I know and trust. And then with Enchanted, right? So when someone's coming to me under, let's say, shadow work, right? I can tune in and talk to their spirit guides for them. I can take a moment, like, your grandmother's saying this, right? And I always ask consent before I go into anything with spirit, of course. But I get to have more flexibility with that. A lot of the people that see me for this type of work under Enchanted, I know through like the yoga studio, and we just have other connections outside of the office that I don't have with my counseling clients.
Yeah. Do you ever have a moment in a counseling client or in a counseling or therapy session where you have a spirit that's trying to connect with your patient?
Yes. And that is very tricky to navigate. Like very, very tricky.
Like they want to get a message through, but you're not going to say it. Or what do you do?
Well, what actually comes up most frequently is I am, as Cindy mentioned, I'm an EMDR therapist.
Do you want to tell everyone what that is?
That's what was going to be the next thing I wanted to talk about.
Because many people may not be familiar.
Yes, because spirit comes through sometimes with EMDR. Yeah. So EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. All that really means is that it is a mind-body approach to help us heal trauma. Trauma is something that just gets stuck in our brain, right? It gets locked in there. And this was discovered in like 1987 by a woman by chance, and she was a psychologist. So she began doing research on this, but she was walking, thinking about something upsetting. She began to move her eyes naturally. And then she realized she wasn't as upset. Yeah. And she's a psychologist, so the rest is history. Here we are today. But it doesn't just have to be
tested
eye
and
movement.
put out there. Yeah.
Right. It doesn't have to be eye movement. It can actually be tapping on your thighs. It can be tapping on your shoulders. It can be sounds back and forth with headphones on. I have the tappers that I use in my office that I like because people can sit back, relax, and close their eyes. And so I explain to people, it's basically we're mimicking in the brain what you get during REM sleep, where we process our information. And so what this does is the way we know it works is that you can recall whatever experience this is without having emotional activation and without having your body react to the situation. That's how we know that this has worked. Like, it's a bad memory, but it's over now.
Yes.
It doesn't affect you as much. You can still talk about it without the trauma of feeling.
Exactly. And so what has happened so many times in my counseling sessions is that someone is sitting there with the bilateral simulation. So they're sitting there with the tappers, and all of a sudden, they're like, I think my dad's here. I'm like, go with that. And this is ethical with EMDR. We're trained to do this. Go with that. What is your dad saying, right? I might not ask that question actually unless they bring it up, but I just say, go with that. And then I have people ask, like, am I making this up? I'm like, can we just pretend for a moment that this is real? Just go with it. And that's also within our EMDR training. And so what has happened for me being on the other end as a medium is I'm also getting the messages as the client's getting the messages. So I know that they're true. Ethically, I can't tell my client that.
Right.
But I know that they're true. And so it's so fascinating. And I love being able to do this because they're getting the connection directly from spirit. And I'm witnessing it. And I'm not now crossing the line of my license and giving messages from spirit in my counseling sessions.
Right.
How do you handle that, though, as a boundary? Like, if you had a patient that just said, like, can you get any messages? Do you have any information for me about someone that I've lost?
So I would explore that with them in many different ways, but I would explain to them ultimately that unfortunately in this role, I'm not allowed to do that. And I would explain to them the reasons why.
Yeah.
And I also explain to those, because I have both businesses under the same roof. I'm not hiding this. I tried. It didn't work. But I'm not hiding this. You know, I'm not getting messages from your loved ones in spirit without your consent. I have good boundaries now. They know not to come to me. Sometimes I'll feel a little knock at the door. So like my head will itch. I tell people, I'm like, I don't have lice, I promise. They'll get a little knock on the door. And if something's coming up, I won't say to them, spirit's coming through. I will ask, like, did you ever consider going to a medium? Did you ever consider this? Or do you ever consider just writing to your loved one? Or are they coming to you in your dreams? Like, I'll just ask the appropriate questions. I'm not telling them. Unfortunately, I just can't with my license.
And I'm glad that you have such strong and clear boundaries so that people they'll know, like, okay, if I really want to pursue this, I have to go to this person that you're referring to.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's really good that you're doing that.
So obviously, you know, you're dealing with so much grief and so much emotion from people. And, you know, people are crying in your office. And, you know, I would say even possibly more than the normal mental health therapist, because both roles are just, you know, you're dealing with trauma. That's your specialty. So how do you take care of yourself? I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are saying, because, you know, every time I've met Jenna, she is just always smiling, always like you can
great
feel
energy.
her warmth.
Yes.
You know, it's not like she's carrying all this weight. That's not you. That's not you. So what are you doing? Because we want to know.
Well,
because it's heavy. A lot of it's heavy.
It's heavy, but honestly, it's easier than when I'm navigating counseling, you know? And I come from a very privileged position as a medium because I have a master's degree in how to navigate emotions.
Yeah.
And I've had years of supervision, like I said, of like reflecting on how I am processing. So some of the things that I learned actually came a lot from my counseling supervisor. And so one of the biggest things is, where do I end and where do you begin? So I will put myself in my bubble. I think of it as Glinda's bubble. So I'll bubble up. I'll put myself in my bubble. And when I start a mediumship session, I put the whole room in a bubble and only love and above spirits, only light spirits that we're inviting in. But then I also do little individual bubbles just for the emotional piece. But at the same time, with mediumship, I explain to them spirit communicates with me in so many ways, including emotions. And I might cry too. It's just easier to run with it. And if I'm with someone and spirit is communicating something that's highly emotional, I'm just going to allow it. Like, I'm not resisting it. And sometimes I'll cry with them, which can be very healing as well.
Mm-hmm.
The crying allows for the natural release. It's our body's natural
It
mechanism.
Yeah, just crying is definitely
It
a
is.
release.
There's no question.
And then a lot of times, so it's the energetic boundary. I'm honestly thinking about protecting myself from the grief is not something I really focus on at all, because it's just something I'm so used to. But people are coming to me and they are, receiving so much validation and hope that their loved ones are still with them. So they typically leave on such a high
Exactly.
that it's not heavy. There have been a few times, especially like working with parents who have lost children, that really, really gets to me, of course. But again, they're leaving on such a high. And so afterwards, I'll do my own thing. So a lot of times I will go outside. I'll put my feet on the earth if it's, weather permitting, and
Yes.
it's not frigid out.
Mm-hmm.
I do a lot of my own energy work with clearing my own energetic field, clearing the field of the office. I will use those EMDR tappers on myself if it's a really traumatic case, just to give my brain a little bit of that bilateral stimulation. I have wonderful friends who are counselors and mediums. So if I need to just take a moment to process, I might ask like, hey, are you free for a few minutes? I just need to talk about this.
It's good that
Great.
you reach out. Yeah.
I mean, that is so important for people to hear, because it's all about, I'm going to do my own thing, I'm my own self-regulation and emotional regulation, but then I'm going to also use all those people that I have a connection with.
Yes. Right.
Because we need to be
And I just want to
connected.
make a comment, because we've had quite a few people here talk about grief.
Yep.
And every single one of them, that is, Lynn Snyder and Sheila and Susan Talone. I'm trying to think, was there anybody else? That's even
Shauna.
Stephanie Bobbitt. All of them who are people that work with people with grief, they have found a way to just stay in this position, and it's almost like they've enabled themselves to be able to help other people and serve other people.
Yeah.
I like to use that word better, but it's almost like they are just, you're called upon to do this work.
And
There's
so many
no
people,
question.
so many
No
of
question.
our grief guests have said that.
Yes.
And even our session with Stephanie Bobbitt, she at one point said, like, I'm the kind of person that you want to be with in a crisis.
Yes.
She's like,
Yes.
I'm really good at that. But I really love the fact that you can handle big emotions because you were trained for this.
Right.
The counseling program trains you to take on those big emotions. So how do you, let's talk about the groups, because I know you've been doing galleries, and I know that now as more and more people are finding out about you, they're asking you to do bigger and bigger and bigger ones. So I believe that when you did the grief day with us, you had what, 20? 15 or 20? Or
It was 15.
I
That was
had-
the limit, supposedly. How many showed up?
Then I think you went to Sandhills,
Yes.
Marianne's wellness space. If you haven't checked that place out, it's great. What a beautiful
is.
space.
Beautiful
You
space.
had even more, I think, there. So now you're going higher and higher and higher. How does it work in a group setting? Because people are coming, and there's no guarantee that a message is going to come through for them.
Exactly. So with the grief day that we had, it was 15 people max and 3 galleries back to back. And so those were 40 minutes. So there was no way I could read for everyone in 40 minutes. But it's the same thing I describe to people as like, you're in a room full of a whole bunch of people. Who's the loudest? That's what's
Right.
happening, is who's the loudest, who's getting my attention first. So in a gallery, I just tune into spirit. Now, I do smaller galleries once a month at Embodied Physical Therapy in Point Pleasant with about 8 people. And with that, I can guarantee pretty much everyone a reading there because it's 8 people. I have the time, and I can
How long
go
are
into that.
those sessions? Like an hour,
That's
hour and a half?
I
So you have more
sometimes go
time.
a little bit over, just depending upon
Yep.
the
Yeah.
flow. But I can pretty much guarantee everyone a reading there. And then with Sand Hills, so I was invited to do a gallery there, which was so exciting. And especially
what a beautiful
because,
space.
oh, it's gorgeous. The energy is blissful.
Marianne, you're doing a good job.
She is.
Phenomenal. And they had a medium there for years that they all loved.
Yes.
And so I had really big shoes to fill.
Oh, you.
Yeah, you
That
did.
was a tough
Yes,
one.
that was a hard one.
Yeah.
And she looked she really researched because she wanted to find someone that could fill those shoes.
A replacement.
Yeah. Yeah. But not just anyone.
No.
Yeah.
And, I was so excited, but so intimidated and so anxious leading up to it. And the moment I arrived, the energy was so soothing. And I mean, I'm doing a mediumship gallery in a church,
I know.
That's
What
why we
churches
love
allow
that
that,
place. It is
right?
such an incredible, unique space.
Yes. And so I was actually really surprised with myself that night because I tune in and I don't always get names. Sometimes I get names. I might get first initials of names. But all of a sudden I'm like, I'm getting a Fred. Who has a connection to a Fred in spirit? And then I'm like, all right, I have someone over here. He's an uncle and he was in the military. And then, I just started getting so many things so quickly.
Yeah.
And they were taking turns, spirit, because I asked them to. I'm like, please take turns. I can't do this all at once. So it's the same thing to me as talking to a room full of people. And it was so fluid. And what really helped, not only the energy of the space and everyone who puts so much hard work into that community center, but the energy of the members of the community sitting there, because they were all so supportive and they, their vibrations were really high. So I explained to people that the term medium comes from the fact that we raise our vibration. Spirit lowers theirs to meet in the middle.
Yeah.
Hence the term medium. It's not just about my energetic vibration. It's also about the people that I'm reading for. So if someone's coming in and it's very, very raw grief, their vibration is very low, it's going to be harder to read for them. And that just is because of the nature of this.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But
it makes sense, though.
It does make
does
sense.
make sense.
It does make sense.
So the galleries then are going really well for you.
They are. I was really impressed with myself after this gallery, and I
Good
had
for you. I'm happy to hear you say that because so many
of
times
us, we don't
people are
say
like,
that.
yeah, you don't say, hey, I did a good job.
Yeah.
I was amazed. I had I had 4 friends there. 2 of them had never seen me do this before, and they were friends from grad school. So
that was a lot of
So
pressure.
they're counseling
wasn't it?
friends.
No,
it was
they're
okay?
such
All
good
right.
friends.
All right.
Such good friends. And so they were sitting close to me, which was really nice for my own emotional anchoring. And so as soon as it was over, I went up to them and I just whisper, am I Teresa Caputo? And they both just
They're
said
laughing
yes at the same time.
I love
And I was
it.
like, how did I do that? I'm like, I don't know, but you did that. And I was amazed. I was like in a fever dream for like 24 hours that
Yes.
I was able to read. I read for about 20 people in 2 hours out of,
Wow.
we had 27 tickets sold. So I read for about 20 people within 2 hours.
That was great. And now it's going to double that because that space is big, and you can. I like to use it when I'm doing a presentation, and I'm like, whoa, I can feel people's energy. I say, I'm on fire.
Yeah,
that's the feeling.
Yes,
you're on fire.
But it's so nice for you to compliment yourself and say, I actually did a good job. I did a good
I love
job.
it.
Yeah.
I love it. What's a takeaway you have for our listeners?
As I said before, you do not need a medium to communicate with spirit. But something else that is really important, especially as my work being both a therapist and a medium, is that it's never too late to have a good relationship with someone. That's one of the first things that my mentor taught me.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's never too late, because what happens is after someone transitions into spirit, they transcend any earthly burdens. So their ego, any suffering, any mental illness even. And so many times what happens for me, and I think it's because I am also a counselor and spirit knows I can handle this, is I'm getting messages from spirit. Maybe they were estranged from their loved ones or there was some type of harm done. And they're coming through because they have transcended that, and all that's left is their true soul, and they are taking accountability and apologizing.
We're both writing this down.
That happens a lot in my readings. In fact, my last gallery on Friday, there were, I think, 5 out of the 8 were apologies and accountability. And it was a theme.
That. Yeah.
Wow.
Apologies.
Yeah.
Well, and that's really an interesting point to bring out, because many people will feel intense grief or regret or feel guilty when someone
is
passes and they go, oh my God, like we left on bad terms. And that's good to know that there is always a chance to repair it somehow. Maybe not in exactly the same way as when they were living, but there's still a way to repair it.
And that's usually one of the first messages that comes through. So when I tune in, I get evidence of who I'm talking to. And I tell people, I'm like, I want the evidence. I want to know who I'm talking to, just as much as you do. Like, I want the evidence. But then after I get the evidence of who they are, then that's typically when immediate apology comes through. I'm like, what happened with this? And did this person struggle with alcoholism? And they're apologizing for putting you in this role. You were in a caretaker role. You're not the eldest daughter, but you acted in the role of eldest daughter. And you had a lot of responsibilities placed on you that were not yours to carry.
Yeah. I know when Cindy and I were with you, you had crystals and you were also talking about energetic protection because maybe you can explain that. Like sometimes you're not, like I know that you were talking about like, you're working with light, but sometimes there is darkness that comes through. So can you explain to us like what is energetic protection? Why is that important? Why do you practice that?
Well, exactly what you just said. Sometimes darkness comes through.
Yeah, but people wouldn't think that. Like, how would you wouldn't think like, why would a darker type of spirit come to you?
Well, a medium to spirit world is like standing on top of the tallest skyscraper in Manhattan. So they all can see us, right? So they all know like, oh, you can see me, you can talk to me. And, how do we drive out darkness? We go into a dark room, we flip on the light switch, right? And so a lot of the times the darkness just is threatened by light because it can drive them out. And so I am very firm on my boundaries. This is also why when I do developmental work with clients who are looking to do this, I also do the shadow work because we need to exist in this love and above frequency. And a big part of my training, in addition to what I shared before, is I do daily meditation. I do meditation, loving kindness every morning. And I extend it for myself, for others, the world at large, all beings. And so I really do this work. So I'm very light that like I'm too light for the darkness to even get near me. Basically.
Yes.
That's good. And it's a practice, right? You keep it's consistent and persistent practice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. We were talking about discipline versus intelligence. We keep bringing that up. I think it's so important for people, and you're disciplined. Yeah, there's no question. We love disciplined people.
All right. We should get to some of your questions that you've got. Cindy has some things.
Yeah, I have some certain questions we always ask. So how do you view failure?
I would say failure to me personally is giving up on something. If I tried something, maybe I didn't succeed in the sense that I had hoped. I don't consider it a failure. I consider it a learning opportunity. So I don't consider learning opportunities failure. I just consider giving up, like completely giving up, failure.
Gotcha. Okay. And what are your 3 most important strengths? Don't overthink it. Everybody is like, if I said to you, what are your 3 most important weaknesses? You'd be like, oh, yeah. So don't overthink it.
So I would say I've learned to balance the compassion I have for others along with compassion that I have for myself. Many of us, especially in the helping professions, put others before us, and I've learned how to find that balance. I would say the second one is I'm very determined. Like if I want to do something, I will. Like I was like, I'm going to start private practice. Issues came my way. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, that was me.
I'm just going to do it. Like I'm just going to figure this out. Like I'm not going to accept no.
Yep.
And then I have to say lastly, actually, is I've made a commitment to continue to practice vulnerability. And I see that as a really big strength. And that is the only way that I am able to do everything that I do, because everything that I do is so vulnerable. Sitting with someone in this pain, me talking to spirit was so vulnerable. Like what if I'm wrong? What if I get something right? What if I hurt someone by accident, and I haven't, thankfully.
Yeah.
But it's very vulnerable. Like I'm so scared of doing harm. And being vulnerable is also sitting with someone in the depths of their pain, but also bringing them and sitting with them as they come to the light and they find that healing.
Yeah. It's interesting that you practice loving kindness meditation, because I think that is what I was searching for when I was describing you, because that's what comes from you. That's the energy. It's loving kindness.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because other people who deal with grief all the time talked about that too. JD, I faced it with love.
Yeah.
Susan Talone, I faced it with love. So it's, I think that's an important message. So write that down in the books.
Yeah.
All right. So we ask this every episode. Almost every episode we ask this of these 3 questions. So is there something you want to change? There's
just yes
or no.
Yes.
Okay. What's holding you back?
Well, it's not something in particular I want to change. It's just change is a part of life. I mean, my career, I started actually as a preschool teacher, and then I became a counselor, and I taught kids yoga and kids dance, and then I became a counselor, and then I became also a medium and a priestess, and doing all these things. So I embrace change for the most part. Let's be real, for the most part. But there's nothing in particular that I am focused on right now. I just see things unfolding for me.
Yes.
And so I just try to allow myself to go with the flow as much as I can.
Yeah, perfect. So what's one thing you can do to move yourself forward?
The thing that my spirit guides continue to tell me is trust. Trust. And that's...
Trust in who?
Trust in me.
Trust in you.
Trust in me.
Unshakable trust.
That's
This
right.
is the position.
Yeah.
Yep.
Seriously.
Yes, it is.
That's the position.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
Interesting. Do your loving kindness meditation with your hands on your chest.
I'm going to
from
try
that.
that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that was one of the questions that I had for you. So you're already doing so much and you're expanding so much. So what is going to be next? Is there something that you're thinking of that you don't have offered yet that you're thinking about doing?
A lot of things, actually.
Okay.
Recently in mediumship readings, I've been connecting with a lot of animals, which I love doing. And it's so
we had
magical.
Animals in both of our readings.
Yeah.
Yes.
I had just the other week a woman only wanting to connect with her dog, and I got so much evidence that this was her dog. It was just so great. So my hope, this is my ego. I'm being very transparent here. This is my ego, is that I want to be an animal communicator with living animals. I think that's the coolest thing. People do that. I took a class on that. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
You're taking a class?
I took a class on that.
Oh.
And I ended up communicating the first time with a dog in spirit. And I got everything accurate with that too, which was so wild and so magical. So I'm hoping to do that with living animals. I am starting to get more into past life readings. I just kind of see that unfolding more and more because I can't censor what comes to me. I also practice a lot of energy work. So I'm trained as a Reiki master. I'm also trained in a druidry, which is an ancient Celtic spiritual practice. I'm trained in that type of energy work as well. So I'm leading workshops on that. I'm doing that in my sessions. I also do sound healing as well, which I incorporate into my energy healing sessions. So I see myself going in many different directions. Like, I don't think mediumship is just it. I'm not pigeonholing myself there, but it's one of the biggest things, and I'm so blessed to be able to do this.
And they're all kind of connected.
Yeah,
they are.
They're all
Can you? I don't know anything about druidry. Is that the way you say it? So what is that?
So
give us an example.
Yeah.
So druidry is the ancient Celtic spiritual path. We can call it a religion. Some people have a hard time with the word religion, but it honored the goddess. It honored the feminine nature in all things, and it honors the nature, the stones, the leaves, the air, the winds, the
elements,
all things. Fairies, goddesses, like all things I've always been drawn to. And when I started to train in this, I realized with the energy work, this is what I was doing in my Reiki training. Because I would ask my teacher, what am I doing with my hand? She's like, you don't have to do that. Reiki will do this. I was like, I know, but what is this? What am I doing? And then I started to train in this. And as I'm in the training, I'm starting to use my hands in those same ways right before my teacher cued it. I'm like, this is my soul remembering this. This is a past life memory for me.
Interesting.
This is my energy work. That is my lineage that I'm now able to do.
Okay.
That's
others.
great.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Before we run out of time,
Right.
let's tell our listeners and our viewers, where can they find you? Because I'm sure there's people going, I need to come see her. How can people make an appointment or find out what you're offering or go to a class?
So my website is the Enchanted Healing or enchantedhealingrealm.com, and you can book a website directly online. For those who are further away, book an appointment. For those who are further away, I offer virtual mediumship readings as well. But I am right in Brielle, and so people can come in. I can do small groups up to about 5 people in my space. I have my events listed on my website as well. I do monthly galleries at Embodied Physical Therapy. Those always sell out, so just keep that in mind. Those sell out quickly. I started doing these bigger galleries at Sandhills Community Center in Kendall Park.
How often are you doing those?
Once every 2 to 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So my next one is on August 1st, and then I have one in October as well. But yeah, everything's right online. I'm doing my best with sending out monthly newsletters with all my upcoming events for the month so that people can see that as well. So if someone wants to hop onto my website and put their email in, they can sign up for my newsletter as well.
And is that the same as if somebody wanted to get a counseling session with you?
Counseling is completely separate business. So that is Lead With Your Heart. And so that I am offering in-person therapy in Brielle. So that would just be a different website.
Okay. Just in case.
Wonderful.
All right. So we are out of time again. We feel like we need to expand our time to talk to all our guests. But thank you for tuning in for another episode. We will be back with another wonderful guest who is doing something amazing in the space of mental health and wellness. And Cindy always has our final thoughts.
And thank you again, Jenna.
Yes, thank you, Jenna.
So remember to do hard things. Obviously, Jenna is doing that. She was a great example of that. And always remember to pause, breathe, respond. Thank you so much.
Thank you.